excited to introduce someone who's redefining what loyalty really means in today's world. Tara Paton is the CEO and founder of Huemanize, a firm that helps brands build loyalty programs. She's known for helping brands move beyond points and perks to create emotional connections that fuel long-term growth. Her philosophy is powerful and actually refreshingly simple. Loyalty isn't just about points, it's about proof of your values, proof that your customers matter. Tara's worked with some of the biggest names across beauty, wellness, food, fashion, and tech, helping them rethink retention in a way that puts people, not just performance, at the center. She is also an incredible speaker, so I'm so excited she's here. She's sharp, thoughtful, and full of insights you can apply right away. Please join me in welcoming Tara Patton. Tara, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Napor. Thank you to Customer for having this CX Summit. I've heard from the chat and from some of the comments that you guys have been enjoying all day. I can't wait to go back and watch the recordings. I unfortunately was working today all day, but definitely ready for this session and looking forward to the questions.
Tara, thanks so much for making the time to be here. I know you're very busy. I'm really excited for this conversation because loyalty feels like it's having a major moment right now, but not in that traditional points and perks way. It feels like the whole definition of loyalty is evolving, and I'm looking forward to digging into some of the big shifts you're seeing. So, to start off, what's the business case for investing in loyalty right now, and why do you think it's becoming such a boardroom priority and not just something marketing teams worry about?
That's a really good question. So I personally am very excited that loyalty is really starting to get the attention it's always deserved. Let me just say that, right? It's no longer being treated as a side project, and it's really being thought of as a strategic lever. And I think the reason behind that is pretty simple, right? In the past few years, acquisition costs have started to get more expensive. I believe, many of you in here can attest to that. And they've only continued to go up. And what you see is that most brands cannot afford to keep playing that game. You're not going to be able to outspin your way into growth forever. So when you think about it from a boardroom perspective, these conversations are coming up now because the board and the executives are starting to realize we have to start doing things differently. So they're starting to come and they're thinking more strategically about investing in loyalty. And what I mean by investing in loyalty is not just putting up a program, it's not just slapping something on your website with points. It's truly being intentional and methodical and thinking about how are you going to build relationships with your customers? Because when you build those relationships with your customers, if anybody here is familiar with finance and compounding interest, the more deposits you make, the more consistently you make those deposits into those relationships, you're going to see returns in the long term and in the short term, but more so in the long term. And that's really where you want to be. So, when you think about it, every customer that you keep is a customer that you don't have to pay for again. You do not have to reacquire them. And those are the types of conversations that are exciting in the boardroom. They want to understand the economics. They want to make sure that the economics make sense. And when you think about it from more of a long-term perspective, they definitely make sense, especially now, especially in today's economy. It just feels right.
Totally agree. It's like loyalty is finally getting promoted from the kids table to the adults table.
Yeah.
It makes sense because growth is getting tougher. Customer expectations are higher. We all know that. And brands just can't outspend their way to loyalty anymore. It's got to be earned. And that sets us up really for our next big topic perfectly. You've described loyalty as a growth engine rather than just a reward system. Can you unpack that for us? What loyalty strategies have you seen actually move that needle on growth and not just offer great perks?
Mm-hmm. I think that, so when you think about loyalty and how it's been done historically, right? Brands will set up a loyalty program, potentially, or most oftentimes it's a points-based loyalty program, and they think that that is building loyalty within their brand. They treat it like an afterthought. And then now, today, in recent times, in like the last year or so, you've seen some bigger brands that have those more traditional loyalty programs that have revamped or refreshed their loyalty programs, right? So they're kind of scrapping the old and putting something new in place.
Yeah.
And that's really because they're thinking, well, they're first of all, they're seeing how their customers are interacting within their existing loyalty program and recognizing that it needs to shift. It's become an expense for them. It's become a liability on their books. And they're
Yeah.
looking at that and they're saying, this is not where we want to be, right? And so that's the trap where you don't want to fall in when you're setting up a loyalty program. Now, the way I think about it and the way that I work with my clients is that let's figure out how to set up this program so that it's actually driving growth. And we do that in a few different ways, right? It's really done right when you think about when loyalty is not an afterthought. It's not like you sending a thank you note for someone making a purchase with your company.
Yeah.
It's where you're rewarding future behavior, right? And so your strategy behind your loyalty program is really, when you're intentional behind it, it's set up to shape what the future behavior of your customers looks like. And that can be, customers coming back more often, customers spending in cross categories, they're referring friends, they're doing things that they would not necessarily do without you depositing again into that relationship. And so you're not just building goodwill, you're also going to be building revenue in that way. There's a Harvard Business Review study that states for every 5% lift in retention, you can see your profits increase anywhere from 25 to 95%. That's not revenue, but your profitability, right? So it's impacting your bottom line in a very significant way. It's not just about perks, it's about the behaviors. So brands and companies are starting to shift from, oh, let's give these points, let's get them to buy, and we'll give them points and reward them this way. And they're starting to think more about what behavioral shifts do I want to see change or increase, or do I want to impact in my consumer base, and how can I build that into a loyalty program? And that's really where you get to the point where you have a growth engine that you can see building your brand and increasing revenue and profitability.
That's so interesting. I think you're spot on there. A lot of brands are still stuck thinking loyalty is just about handing out discounts or freebies, or as you noted, thank you notes. But what you're describing is way more strategic. It's about engineering growth into the business model itself and not just hoping customers come back because you gave them a coupon. And that actually teases up to the next thing I wanted to ask you, because many companies have a loyalty program, but not many actually have truly loyal customers. Where's the disconnect?
I think the big trap, and I mentioned this, is thinking that because someone joins your loyalty, or because you have a loyalty program, let's talk about this in two different ways.
Yeah.
I've come across brands where they've set up a loyalty program and they just leave it there. They don't continue to deposit into those relationships. They just believe that because they've built the loyalty program that the customers will come and they will be more loyal, right? That's one way that I've seen it. The second way that I see it is that brands will set up the loyalty program and they, put a little bit of deposits into the loyalty program, into building those relationships. And they believe because people have joined their program that they're actually brand loyal. And that's not the case, right? So it really depends on what the strategy is behind the loyalty program, because you can have people that are joining your loyalty program simply to acquire points, right? To get to whatever the end goal is that they want, or whatever the carrot is that you're dangling in front of their face. They're going to shop, or they're going to purchase, or they're going to send out referral links to get whatever it is that they want to get, whether it's cash back, a coupon, etc. Right? So they'll do that for that short-term gain. And I think that when you think about why companies have loyalty programs, but they don't have loyal customers, it's really because people are not so focused on the emotional aspects of loyalty. And so it's really about building trust. It's about relevance. It's about that consistency. Again, those consistent deposits into the relationship. And when you think about it, when you feel seen, by anybody. Let's just take the companies out of the equation, right? In any relationship, when you feel seen, when you feel heard, when you feel valued, you have some sort of emotional connection. There's a tie there between you and that person. It's the same way with organizations. We have to start thinking from an organizational standpoint in that same way. So when I'm saying building relationships, it's just like building relationships with people on a day-to-day basis, right? And
Yeah.
especially to this point, like there is data also to back this up. So I believe it's emotionally connected customers produce 3 times more customer lifetime value than a customer that is simply satisfied with a brand, right? So the goal isn't just to enroll them. The goal is to really earn that connection and build that connection and that relationship with them.
Exactly. I mean, just having a loyalty program doesn't automatically mean you're winning customers' hearts, as you said. So much emotional work has to happen. And I think that's where a lot of brands miss the mark. So, with that in mind, I'd love to hear if there's a brand that's actually cracked this. Like, who's doing loyalty in a way that's really moving the needle on growth? And what can others take away from that?
So I'll give you 2 examples. They're both from the beauty space. One is a case study in like beauty, but then also as a personal customer, right, example that I can provide. And then one is based on a company in its infancy that continues to kind of build onto loyalty today without an actual program. So the first one is Sephora. Anybody in here in Sephora Beauty Insider, put it in the chat. They just finished their sale, right? They just finished their sale, but the Sephora Beauty Insider program, while on the outside it looks just like a simple tiered program, it's not just that. Those tiers unlock access to different things. So based upon where you are in the tier, you can get early access to shop, you get status, you get points, you get cash back, like you get so many different things. And they make you truly feel special. So for me, whenever there's a Sephora sale, before I got the top tier access, I would be so upset because during the sales, I would go to shop and everything would be out of stock, right? And so when I got to that top tier, which is Rouge, now I can shop for a few days and not worry, right? I have a few days to kind of build my cart, go into the store, test some things, try them out, put them in the cart. I can even do a few orders before everyone else has the ability to start shopping. So I know things will be available for me. They won't be out of stock. And I get special perks. I get a higher discount. And that makes me feel special as a shopper, right? And I think for Sephora, it's paid off dividends. I think in their last annual report, they mentioned 80% of their sales are actually coming from program members.
Ooh.
So that's active members that are shopping within the program and engaging within the program. Other example is Glossier. And so they don't rely on points and tiers, and especially when they initially started, right? They built their loyalty around involving customers in the brand and building the brand itself. So they crowdsource product feedback, they highlight different stories from different users. They really make people feel like they're a part of something. And so when you think about that, the first thing that comes to mind is community, and community is a word that's being thrown around in the loyalty space as well. But I think it goes beyond community. These people actually feel like they belong to something. They're a part of something and actually building it. And so, in both of those cases, it's not just about rewards. It's about the relationship. It's about the experience. It's about feeling like you belong to something that's bigger and greater than just the company.
Such a great example, Tara. Really, both of them. The Sephora one especially hits really close. I love how you frame those. It's not just about rewarding transactions. It's about reimagining the whole customer relationship. That feeling of belonging that you just mentioned, and that brings up, another big challenge. Even if you have that right loyalty strategy, if your teams and culture aren't aligned around it, it's really hard to bring it to life. So let's go there a little bit. What kind of team or culture shifts do you think are needed to truly operationalize retention?
So because loyalty is having its moment, I am going to pitch for the fact that when you think about retention, when you think about loyalty, it cannot sit in a silo. We can no longer have the mindset that marketing owns loyalty, right? It has to be embedded across the teams, and it has to be owned across the teams. So that means CX, product, frontline teams, whomever, everyone has to have a part in loyalty. Because if you think about it, what happens in CX, what happens in product, that in fact will impact if someone is loyal to a brand, right? If something
Yeah.
shifts, something changes in those different parts of the organization, it can impact the loyalty and the lifetime value of a customer. So one of the shifts that I've actually seen in companies that I've worked with is that they're tying their loyalty metrics. And I will say, and I'm sure this question will come up, like, what is the loyalty metric that we should be sharing across teams?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but I will say that should be a conversation within the organization on what that metric should be, right? So it could be second purchase rate, churn, CLV, whatever it is, but it
Yeah.
has to show up as a success metric. And I've seen this in companies that I've worked with, and I've seen it be successful. So it's in their success metrics. They even bring it downstream to be a part of their performance reviews, right? So it's not just in campaigns, oh, we're running a loyalty campaign. It's not just in marketing reports. It is something that is integrated within the organization. So as a culture, if this is something that you're trying to do with your organization to kind of shift that mindset, and it does take a little bit of work, because everybody, and I'll be frank, everybody is not bought into loyalty, right? Yes, it's having its moment, but there are still people who are not bought into it.
Yeah.
Are trying to make that shift, that cultural shift to loyalty. You have to think about it from the standpoint of, it's not something that you launch, it's really something that you live and breathe every day.
Such an important point. I mean, changing that internal mindset is just as critical, maybe even more critical than anything you do externally with customers. Because, yeah, I mean, to your point, at the end of the day, loyalty isn't just a program, it should be an operating principle. So, to bring it down to a really tactical level, if you're a CX leader trying to spark that shift, what's the one thing you could do tomorrow to start moving in that direction?
First things first, I would gather your CX team. If you can, your marketing team, your product team, have some sort of like huddle, right? Where you ask a simple question: what does loyalty success look like for us, right? As an organization. And you may get different answers. You may get a different answer from the product team. You may get a different answer from the marketing team. CX may have a different answer, right?
Yeah.
But I think as CX leaders, we have to go beyond the NPS scores, right? We have to go beyond that. So that's why I'm saying gather all of these teams together and ask that question. And then what you'll find in that conversation, hopefully you get to a place where there's alignment, and there's some momentum behind what loyalty means. And you may not be able to solve what that metric is in that one conversation, but at least people are starting to think about it, and there's excitement behind it. And trust me, the marketing teams will be like, oh, you guys are worried about loyalty? Great. Like, let's figure out how we partner and how we can make it better from a CX perspective, from a product perspective. I promise you, your marketers will be excited to have that conversation. And then I think beyond that, once you get to a place where you all are in alignment, it's making it visible. So I mentioned it in the last question, make loyalty visible, make retention visible, align on a metric, put it on a dashboard, make it something that you all see, that you all talk about. Even the CX leaders, the marketing team leaders, of course, talk about it, but think about product teams and CX. If you were talking about, okay, our CLV for last month was X, and our goal is to get it here. What are some tactical things that we can be thinking about when we are providing service to our customers, right? How can we help with getting our CLV higher? So I think those are the tactics that you would take, is first having a conversation, getting alignment, and then thinking about what does that metric is, and making it visible.
Completely agree. I mean, it's one thing to set those big goals around retention, but the real magic happens when it becomes a part of the daily mindset and decision making across the whole organization, and getting that alignment there, as you noted. Of course, even when the culture is right, there are still some real world challenges, especially around tech and data. So I'm curious, when you're working with those kinds of constraints, messy data, platform limitations, how do you still keep the customer experience simple, personal, and effective?
So the first thing I'll say is that I've never worked for an organization where tech was perfect. I've also never worked for an organization where the data was perfect or clean, right? And so most of the brands and the companies I work with, when I'm collecting data or when they provide data, it's not perfect, and that's okay. And so I want to just kind of make sure that people are not waiting for the perfect data or the perfect situation or the perfect tech build to move ahead with thinking about loyalty or implementing things to help with loyalty, right? So when you think about it from a personalization standpoint, you don't necessarily need to personalize things down to the shoe size of your customer unless you're a shoe or sneaker company, right? But I say that to say you don't need to have data that is not necessarily relevant for what you're trying to drive. So I always say focus on behavior, what they bought, when they last engaged, what categories are they shopping in, and that can really give you a sense of how to personalize and also how to segment based on what really matters. And also to the point where it doesn't become creepy, where you have data on them or information on them that
Sure.
they did not necessarily give to you, and you've kind of, big brothered them in a sense. So I would say keeping it simple, focus on segmentation if you can't get down to like that super detailed level of personalization. And I would also argue you don't need to get down to that deep level of personalization in any sense. So, by doing that and by focusing on the segmentation or smart personalization, if you do that really well, you can expect some lift in your revenue, right? But I would say don't wait for things to be perfect in order to do that.
And so that's a powerful message. Don't wait, I think, because waiting or doing nothing is probably going to cost you more so than not. Yeah, and segmenting with the data that you have is obviously very important to get started with, at least today. Such a thoughtful perspective, Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's clear that building true loyalty in today's world takes a lot more than just perks or points. It's about rethinking those relationships and reshaping culture and really treating loyalty as that real growth engine that you mentioned up ahead. We so appreciate you being here. Thank you for giving us all so much to think about as we go back and rethink the way we bring and build loyalty with our own customers. Thank you so much for being here, Tara.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.